Dr. Costas, going back to how you talk about lowering your overhead and then trying to increase employee salaries or whatever, what do you really like recommend in terms of some sort of retirement plan for your employees? Do you employ that? Do you instill that? Do you believe in that? Or is that something that you leave out?
Yeah, it's the same thing. We consider that part of their compensation package, and we try to make it as aggressive and generous as possible because we don't want to just recruit people. We want to retain them for the long haul. And then there's a big part of not just providing medical insurance and providing 3% 401k match, all that stuff. You have to make sure that the culture is strong and that they understand the benefits of what you're providing them. And you know, for instance, the first year that we offered a 3% 401k match to our employees, like of the 40 of our, sorry, there's probably 55 of our employees here in the Arizona practices, like 6 of them took advantage of it.
Mm-hmm.
The others just did not see the value. So we had to have like, a full day seminar, like on how important it is as a
Oh, wow.
22 to 25-year-old to start saving for retirement now, especially if us as an ownership group is willing to pay for a percentage of that. You got to take advantage of it. So it's really important to not just provide it, but to instill in them the importance of taking care of their future, and the importance and the value that a match for a retirement plan can have on your overall retirement plan.
Right. Dr. Costas, I got another question for you about multi-practice ownership. So I don't know if you've heard Dr. Brady Frank speak. He coined the term equity harvesting, or he's like the only guy I've heard say equity harvesting.
Yeah, Brady's a good friend of mine. We went to dental school together. He graduated.
Oh, there you go.
Wow.
I guess he does know.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts about that? And just for our listeners, it's basically taking on partners to create cash flow in order to purchase multiple value-added practices. So
I totally believe in that. With multiple practice ownership, there is going to be a period of time, depending on how aggressive you want to be and how comfortable you are with risk. If you want to keep private equity at bay and you don't want to take on partners that are going to give you money to take on the majority of ownership in your operation, that's basically what private equity does, in order to get money from them. You're either going to have to max out what you borrow personally with a personal guarantee with banks,
right.
And you usually cap out around $5 million.
Okay.
So if you want to have beyond 10 practices, I've had up to 14 practices, and the way I was able to do that was with equity swaps and merging different practice groups together.
Right.
But unless you get super creative, it's very difficult to get funding to continue to grow beyond 10 or 12 practices, or that $5 million threshold when traditional lending institutions just are no longer interested in taking that risk. So equity harvesting is a great way to do it. So for instance, you would sell 25% of $1 million valued practice. So you get $250,000. So you can go down the street and then you can buy a $250,000 practice, or maybe a $500,000 practice, and you're financing $250,000 with a traditional bank, and you're bringing cash that you've removed from the equity of another practice to keep this ball rolling. The limitation to it is this. In order to be able to sell bits and pieces of your practice, you have to make sure that the bank is aware of that if you still have debt on the practice. For instance, if I have a practice that I owe $1 million on, but the valuation for the practice, the fair market valuation, is $2 million, I have $1 million in equity,
right.
But I still owe the bank $1 million. So the bank still wants to be in first position and wants me to still personally guarantee that note. So they're not necessarily going to be super happy about me selling 50% of my practice to remove the $1 million, so that I can use that $1 million to buy more practices. So you have to contend with debt. Who is in first position for the loan on the practice, and whether or not that's going to be allowed. If you can get around that, then equity harvesting is great. But for a lot of people, you run into a brick wall unless you own the practice outright without any debt
Right.
associated to it. So there are limitations that not a lot of people talk about.
So would you say that going the private equity route is, I mean, I know a lot of people say that's not necessarily good for the dental industry, but what are your thoughts on that?
There's a time and a place and a certain type of person that is attracted to private equity. I'm not completely closed to a private equity deal. I've been offered several times for groups to come and buy me. If the valuation is strong enough, there's always the opportunity to come out smelling like a rose. But if you are bringing on private equity just for a capital infusion, and they come in and they own 60% of your operation, and you're getting, say, $600,000 for $1 million practice, there's a lot of things that you have to keep in mind. First of all, you're not going to get all of that cash. They're going to withhold 20% of it over a certain period of time based on performance. So if you're selling a single practice, for instance, they're going to give you probably 60% of the cash value of the practice in cash. 20% of it they're going to withhold over a 3 to 5 year period of time, and you have to maintain their idea of a reasonable level of production. And then after that 3 years, then you'll get your 20%. The last 20%, they're going to, in many cases, they're going to make it mandatory that you reinvest in the new DSO. So you have to reinvest with their company, so that money is reinvested in stock in their company, not necessarily liquid cash for you. So you can count on about 60% of the valuation, what they value the practice at, coming back to you in cash, 20% in about 3 years if you hit all of their benchmarks. And then the other 20%, sometimes it works out great, where your stock actually increases in value by investing in their DSO. Sometimes it doesn't work out so great. So that's one consideration to think about. Now, if you're a small group of practices or a regional group, and private equity comes in and wants to buy 60%, you're going to get your cash, probably about the same breakdown, but now you've just bought yourself a boss.
True.
And they're going to tell you which practices to buy, how to run the practices. A lot of times it affects the culture negatively. So there's a lot of different things to consider when you're getting involved with private equity. The bottom line is, if you are super entrepreneurial and if you've been able to build a successful regional group, that means that you are super entrepreneurial. A lot of times people have a really difficult time now having a boss and somebody pulling the strings and telling them what to do inside their practices that they built.
Yeah, that's fantastic information. I know it's a couple of things that we haven't really heard about, so it's awesome to consider some of those things. I think you had mentioned this. It was either in the book or one of your podcast episodes, and I know there's like a split opinion on this, but what's your view of having like a multiple general practice dentistry model versus a super GP?
Oh, you're saying bringing in specialists into the practice versus
a
general dentist?
Say I had like 1 or 2 super GPs versus 5 general practice dentist practices.
Oh, you're saying like a gigantic Craig Spodak type operation?
Yeah, exactly.
A dental hospital.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So you guys know Craig, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Craig's a good friend of mine. He is a genius, and he has a really successful 8-figure practice. He'll be the first to tell you. I don't think that he would be offended by me saying this out loud, because I've been on his podcast a couple times and we talk about this, and he's been on mine a couple times and we talk about this. But he would be the first to tell you that his model has its flaws, because he has a whole lot of dental specialists that work for him in his model, and they get a higher percentage of their production. Some of them get 50% of their production to produce what they produce. So they get paid a higher percentage for a higher level of production. So a specialist typically will produce more than a general dentist, because their services are billed at a higher rate.
Right.
But the house keeps less of that high production, because their percentage that they're compensated for their overall production is higher. Okay, so for instance, if you fill your network with, say, 5 general dentists that place implants,
Mm-hmm.
that do periosurgery, that do adult ortho, that do all on four, that do I don't know, pedo, whatever that the specialty procedures are, they do them just as well or just as good as a specialist because they got advanced training and they've been doing it for years and years and years. You're probably going to pay on a high level 35% for the general dentist to produce the same procedures,
Right.
the same clinical procedures. So Craig's problem, what Craig complains about from time to time, is that it's difficult to be profitable unless your overhead is super, super tight because the percentage that goes out to the providers is so much higher than what we would have to pay a general dentist for the same procedures.
Okay, that's very interesting. I didn't know that.
Dr. Costa, so when you're worrying about your production and stuff like that, you could overwork yourself sometimes, put too much on your plate. You talk about burnout and how if you progressively increase your workload, sometimes delegation is important, things like that. So would you mind touching on that?
Yeah, so burnout. Burnout is one issue that Alistair talks about a lot, right? Alistair is my performance coach, and the reason he is a black belt coach in my organization is because he was first my personal performance coach. He taught me how to be much more balanced in my work and life, how to pick up interests outside of dentistry, get back to that natural athlete that I was, and living a more passionate and centered life and less focused just on the dollar bills. Because if you guys have heard me talk about the four futures, Alistair and I talk about the four futures, 4 quadrants of your life that you should focus on. You should have some sort of mindfulness routine where you focus on gratitude, maybe some quiet reflection, maybe it's focusing on the higher power, maybe it is guided meditation. Whatever it is, you should have some sort of routine throughout your day where you are in touch with something greater than yourself. And if you focus around gratitude, that's a great start. And then the next quadrant is meaning. How are your relationships? Are you living up to the legacy that you want to provide for your family? How are you filling the roles in your life, the different roles in your life? How are you as a father, as a son, as a boss, as a brother, as a sister, as a mother, father, as a spouse? How are you there? Are you spending enough attention on those really key relationships in your life? And then the next one is muscle. How are you as far as your vibrancy? Do you have an exercise routine?
Oh yeah.
Do you put healthy fuel into your body? Are you hydrated? Are you vibrant? And will you live long enough to enjoy your great grandkids? And then the last quadrant is money. The last quadrant, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is all the stuff that we talk about on my podcast. That is all the stuff that you guys talk about in practice management. That is the focus on debt versus income. All the stuff that you guys talk about as far as is anything where finances touch your life, personal finance, practice finance, all that stuff, that's the money quadrant. Well, I'll tell you what, at very, very early on in my career, I was considered the whiz kid because I had 6 practices in 7 years. I was a multimillionaire before I hit 40 years old. And I was a 10 out of 10 in the money quadrant, but all of the other 3 quadrants, I was a 0 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a hollow victory getting to that point. My relationships were falling apart. I was near divorce. My kids never saw me. I didn't get to spend any quality time with anybody in my family. I was a jerk at the office. I wasn't a grateful person. I was an angry person. I was out of shape because I was so stressed. Although I was still working out, I was not healthy. So that is the level of burnout that you guys can get, and the amount of imbalance that any type A person can experience if you're not really, really cognizant of working on all 4 of your quadrants. So burnout is just a function of letting those things get a little bit out of whack. If you're just making sure that you're touching each of those 4 quadrants every single day, things will be much more in balance. So that's the best advice I can give you. I mean, I could talk for hours and days. I just did a 2-day seminar on, keeping yourself in balance and how to avoid burnout. But the bottom line is making sure that you are spending a little bit of time visiting each of those quadrants every single day. making sure that your relationships don't suffer, your health doesn't suffer, and you still have a great gratitude, a fair amount of gratitude for where you are.
Absolutely.
That's the best way to avoid burnout.
I think you touched on some really important points about physical health, emotional health, relationships with others, and just focusing on things outside of your practice. Because me personally, and I feel like the other guys here, we are well-rounded individuals. We try to make sure that we have our gym schedule in time, we have our family schedule in time, and our friends. And it's hard to keep those relationships and other things going. But I feel like it's a good way to build a foundation for when we do have a practice. So when we have someone like you telling us to do these very basic human things each and every day, I think it's just reassuring that it's not always about just the practice. There's other parts of your life, and that will only allow you to do better when you do your work in your practice.
Yeah, I'm looking at a picture of you guys with your arms crossed with these hard looks. I thought for sure these guys met in the gym.
Of course.
They're trying to still get me consistently in the gym. I'm the straggler of it.
Three of us are roommates, so it all just clicked when we said gym.
Yeah. I love it, man.
Yeah.
Gym rats.
Gym rats.
We had a test today, and like the password to enter the test was gym rats. Shout out to all my LA Fitness homies. That's
wow, that's so funny.
And that's us.
Yeah,
because we see them at the gym.
Yeah.
So
hey, I want you guys to all join my Facebook group, my Dental Success Institute Facebook group, because I issued a challenge to the Facebook group, 100 burpee challenge. I don't know if you guys saw it.
That's
100 burpees, 30 days in a row. I'm on day 11. So
how's it going?
Pretty good. I mean, I just work it into the rest of my routine. I work out 7 days a week. That's the only thing that keeps me sane. But my workouts are super intense and super short. So my workouts are usually no longer than 25 minutes. Add another 9 minutes for 100 burpees, and I'm out of there in 35 minutes. But yeah, I extended that challenge. There's like 50 people taking it. People are.
I would be interested in doing that challenge. I feel like it's a good way to do some cardio and just get some extra working in the gym, and it's quick too.
Yeah, it's pretty quick. It's a miserable 9 minutes, but it's over quick.
You know what? We're gonna get the challenge trending. That's gonna go viral.
There you go.
We had the ice bucket challenge, the burpee challenge next.
There you go. You're gonna want the ice bucket on your head after the burpee challenge. But yeah, make sure you guys sign up. Just request to be accepted into the DSI Facebook page, not the page, DSI Facebook group.
Right.
Facebook group. I'll let you guys in. You can go find the challenge.
Absolutely. Also, can you tell our listeners about some of the stuff that you've been creating? I know you got a lot of exciting things that you just launched, the Dental Success University. Also, maybe touch on DSSN.
Yeah. Cool. You guys have been doing your research here. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, I have a lot of DSs in my life. Dental Success Institute is my main consulting company. We have clients all over the world. We help dentists become more profitable and to be more efficient in their practices, to help their teams and them reach their full potential. That's Dental Success Institute.
Right.
That is a coaching group where we meet at one of our 2 physical training facilities, either in Indianapolis or Scottsdale, 4 times per year. And we teach anything from any kind of clinical procedure that you could possibly think of, and practice management and case acceptance, etc. That's Dental Success Institute. Then we have Dental Success Network, which is a network of 700 dentists. It's a membership program. I'm the CEO of that company, one of the co-founders of that company, together with Tim McNamara, Dr. Dave Bender, and Dr. Dave Maloli, who also has a podcast called The Relentless Dentist. We founded this company called Dental Success Network, and that is, if you think about something like Dental Town, which is a free forum, we are a paid forum where you can visit in there anything from ortho to pedo to implants to oral surgery to practice management, which is my room. There's a number of different chat rooms in there that are moderated by the actual faculty. We have 50 faculty. They moderate those chat rooms. In addition to that, there's a ton of virtual CE that happens in there and delivered through there. And then we also have live continuing education. The actual faculty teach live continuing education at one of our 2 facilities, and we have a buying club as well. So, one of the benefits of being part of a DSO is that you have the buying power of several hundred practices. Well, we have 700 doctors in here with probably close to 900 practices and
Wow.
over $1 billion in collective revenue. So we are able to really negotiate hard with the different vendors, and that helps everybody in the group to keep their overhead low. And then we have DSSN, which is Dental Student Success Network, which is designed just for students, which
Right.
is the student version of DSN. So there, you don't have to worry about a buying group right now, but there is virtual continuing education. There are different chat rooms with different instructors in there, and there is the ability for all students to be able to communicate with all students from all over the country. So we have students from all of the different dental schools across the country. This is still in its infancy, so it's still populating very, very quickly, and all of the provinces in California. So yeah, we have the ability for you guys to not only learn a significant amount about clinical procedures and share information about, what happens at your school on how to study for boards, but also you have the ability to communicate with one another from school to school, within school, and then from school to school as well. So think about Facebook, but just for dental students, and that's what it is.
Right. And I'm actually a member of the DSSN. And
Oh, cool.
yeah, I just want to, honestly, I want to thank you because I feel like there's a lot better information than on Dentaltown. Like Dentaltown's, it's huge. It's got a lot of good information, but I feel like it's much more high yield and stuff is very specific. And you can tell like the people that are members in DSSN are, they're kind of the top of their class there. There's not really, there's no negative comments or anything. Everything is just everybody supporting each other. And so I really appreciate being part of that group.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, there's a zero tolerance. I am anti-troll, anti-bully, anti-critic. Like if somebody has the guts to post something, by God, give them enough credit and respect to give them an honest critique, and don't bash them because they have an open margin on the distal. Just give them a great critique. We wanted to create something that was above all of that and give people a safe place to interact. Oh, I forgot DSU. DSU is my my brand new online learning academy. It's only 2 weeks old. We have I want to say probably 350 videos on everything practice management that you could possibly think of. Alistair McDonald has a whole bank of videos on there. I have a whole bank of videos on overhead, cash flow control, systemization, and then Kira Dent, my partner, has about 200 videos specifically for training the team members in your dental practice.
That is absolutely
We're gonna have to
fantastic.
check that out.
Yeah.
I found my new entertainment for cardio. No.
Yeah. There you go.
He's the next Gordon Christensen. That's what it is.
Oh man.
Dr. Costas, I have George here. I have 3 more questions before we wrap things up. It's called the Vibe Triple Threat. Do you think you're ready?
Do I need to stretch? Am I going to pull a hammy here? Or?
Might have to.
You might.
Okay.
All right, so question number 1. What is your number 1 piece of advice to a dental student graduating from school?
Don't worry about debt. Focus on increasing your clinical suite and find a good bank of mentors.
Beautiful.
Short and sweet to the point.
Short and sweet to the point.
Okay. Number 2. What is one mistake you made and wish you could change?
Dude, one mistake? You're making me pick one?
Common mistake, maybe. Maybe this is a common.
Oh my gosh, so many
I'll limit you
mistakes.
to 3.
I say it all the time. The only reason that anybody can consider me an influencer or an authority in anything is because I made more mistakes than anybody else. I made more mistakes in my first year of practice ownership than most people make in their entire careers. I'll tell you that right now. So the only reason anybody could call me an expert is because I'm an expert at failure and I've learned from my mistakes. But if I was going to boil it down to one thing, and this goes deeper than just practice management, it is what I alluded to earlier with my story, and that was when, at year 7 of my career, when I had reached the pinnacle of financial success, I realized that I had let all the other quadrants of my life fizzle, and I wasn't taking care of myself or those around me, just because I thought that the most important thing in the world was accumulating cash in my bank account. So I will tell you guys that the most important thing is to make sure that you remain balanced and that you never sacrifice your relationships or the people that are most important to you for the sake of $1.
Right. Okay, so question number 3. This is the last one. What keeps you driven, and what are you looking forward to in life?
Oh my gosh. I wake up at 4:30 in the morning every day without an alarm clock because I'm so excited. Dude, I am so excited about my life. I'm so excited about what's to come. You guys, life gets better and better and better if you're passionate about what you're doing. I absolutely love what I do. I love being able to help people transform their dental practices. I love being able to interview my heroes on the podcast. My new thing is that I'm marching towards things that I don't enjoy and things that scare the shit out of me. Yeah. So, I've always wanted to get my pilot's license. I'm actually about to purchase my first airplane. So I
like that.
Yeah. So, even though I have a pilot that's going to be taking care of flying me around because it's a bigger airplane than I'm going to be able to handle, but I'm still scared of light aircraft, and I'm going to get my pilot's license. So I start that actually tomorrow, 7:30 in the morning is my first flight with my instructor. And so it's just stuff like the burpee challenge where the one thing I've been a personal trainer. I was a personal trainer for 16 years. And I've lived in the gym. I played collegiate football. I've lived in the gym. And the one exercise that I always dreaded the most was burpees. So I said, you know what? Oh, wow. This is the one thing I hate the most. I'm going to walk straight towards it. So I created this burpee challenge. So I'm doing things that I don't necessarily like, but I know that are going to be a really big challenge for me, and that excites the heck out of me. I'm doing things that scare me. I'm doing things that I've always wanted to do. There's certain places that I want to visit that I'm going to check off the list. I'm going to learn how to speak another language this year. My wife and I are taking dance lessons. There's just so much to be excited about, and I just can't contain my enthusiasm most days.
We can tell, Dr. Costas, and it sounds like what you really enjoy is turning your weaknesses into your strengths almost, which is, I think, a very good trait to have, and not enough people understand how much it can make you grow as a person.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. Look, dude, I selected dentistry as my career, probably the least likely person to be a successful dentist because I had a learning disability, and it was not an easy ride for me to get into dental school. But I stuck with it, and never, ever have I taken the profession for granted because it was really hard for me to get in. But, I was probably the weakest student to get into my dental school class, and I've done all right in comparison to a lot of them. Not better, but I've just done all right. The fact that I've managed to graduate and still maintain my license is a miracle. So, yeah, it reframed what I thought possible, right? So, the fact that I've done well financially, the fact that people actually listen to the podcast, the fact that people pay me money to share my experience with them, everything's a bonus, man. So thank you for that sentiment. But yes, I agree. Anybody can turn their life into anything that they want it to be.
Yeah, no, and I think Seth and I specifically can relate to that so much because I graduated undergrad in 2015, and I felt like I wasn't sure what the chances of me getting into dental school were, and it was my dream to become a dentist. And the path to get there made it so much sweeter when I got the acceptance letter, because it's the biggest relief you ever have in your life, because you want to get into the game, but it's all about just getting into the game sometimes. And, it tests you in so many different ways. But I think, like Anthony referred to, it makes you so much stronger as a person, and then you apply that work ethic that you've gained and you take that into the rest of your life as well.
Totally. Hey guys, you gotta have you guys heard of David Goggins?
Of course. Goggins. Seth and I talk about him all the time.
Yeah, okay, so David Goggins, my favorite David Goggins quote: anything worth having is on the other side of suffering.
Nice.
That's a quote, right?
Nice. I like that.
It is so true. Anything worth having is on the other side of suffering, and anything you accomplish, the more you suffer to accomplish it, the sweeter it is when you actually accomplish it. So if something is a pain in the ass if it is really, really difficult to achieve, you should relish every second of it, because that means there's going to be fewer competitors when you're done, and the feeling that you're going to have when it's all said and done is going to be something that most people never get to experience in their entire lives. So the harder a challenge is, the happier you should be about it as you're going through it.
That's fantastic. Yeah, no, I think we can all relate to that so much, because, even when we started our first year of school, it was intimidating, but, you practice dropping the box 50,000 times, it feels like. You're in the sim like for 6 or 7 hours, like a day sometimes on the weekends.
Yeah.
And, once you hit that sweet spot and you've got that gingival clearance, you haven't nicked the adjacent tooth, it's the best feeling ever.
And then you just got to leave. You got to drop it right there.
Yeah, but then you go
then you go on to the next, exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Good stuff, guys. I love what you're doing, man. Congratulations on all of your success so far.
We greatly
Thank you.
appreciate it.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your time as well. It was fantastic hearing from you.
Yeah, we've been waiting to talk to you for a long time, Dr. Casas. So where can our listeners find out about you, reach out to you?
Yeah, man. Thank you. Go to Dental Success Institute, the Facebook group. We will let you all in if you have something to do with the dental profession. It is zero tolerance to jerks. So if you're a jerk, don't bother applying. We also have Dental Success Institute on Instagram, the Dentalpreneur podcast, of course. And you can email me directly with any questions, anybody out there. I always answer my email. Sometimes it takes me a week for two of my assistants to handle them first, but info@truedentalsuccess.com. Email me directly and we'll have a chat.
Awesome. And it's funny because we were talking about Dr. Brady Frank. I see he's on the back of your book. I'm holding your book right now.
Yeah.
He's on the back of your book. So.
Yep. He and I have been friends for a really long time. I've known Brady for over 20 years. Yeah.
All right, Dr. Casas. Well, we really appreciate you. This is awesome that we got to talk to you, and we really hope that we're gonna be able to reach out to you again. We hope to come to one of the conferences in the future here.
Yep. You guys have an open invitation.
Yes,
You got
sir.
it.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Best of luck with your last exam, and enjoy your time off. And let's hook up soon.
Absolutely.
Sounds
Thank you,
great.
sir.
So much
We
for your time.
appreciate you.
Take care, guys.
Have a good one.
Thanks.